Friends, loved ones, seekers all, welcome. It is an honor and a true privilege to stand before you today, both as a fellow Unitarian Universalist and as the new Executive Director of the Unitarian Universalist Advocacy Network of Illinois. I've spent the morning admiring your beautiful space here in Peoria, and let's be honest, trying to navigate the light snow dusting. But I'm here now, and I'm so glad you are too. How many of us have experienced the deep, quiet pull, the internal voice that tells us that something is deeply right or profoundly wrong? We Unitarian Universalists know this voice well. We call it conscience. It is the compass that we carry, calibrated by our faith, our values, and our shared experiences. Our tradition is not built on mandatory dogma or the rigid walls of a creed, but on the brave moral imperative to live out the convictions of that inner voice. This morning, we are gathered to celebrate the vital connection between that personal conscience and our collective action. Because a lone conscience, however powerful, however righteous, cannot dismantle systemic injustice. A single light can illuminate a room, but it takes a network of lights to push past the darkness of an entire state. For that, we need a network of conscience, a coordinated strategic movement powered by love. The indigenous tribes of the Amazon have a popular fable that teaches about the web of life. A butterfly flapping its wings in the jungle stirs the wind that creates many more small wind currents that divide and multiply and ultimately manifest into a hurricane on the other side of the world a few days later. The teaching is that all is connected, and our daily actions are inextricably braided into everything else in ways that we may never fully comprehend in the present moment. Our local act of conscience, the letter you write, the vote you cast, the neighbor that you feed, are those flapping butterfly wings. Now let's turn that wind into the hurricane of change. Can we first acknowledge the storm we are in right now? We cannot talk about practicing resistance this month without acknowledging the air that we are breathing. And friends, it is heavy. We come to this sanctuary carrying the news from Minneapolis, yet another heart-wrenching murder of a protester, a person standing in the gap for justice. We carry the horror of a little boy in a bunny hat and a Spider-Man backpack, taken from his family by forces that have forgotten how to see the divine in a child's face. It's the kind of news that makes you want to pull the covers over your head and stay in bed until, say, 2029. It's the kind of news that makes the butterfly wings feel fragile, almost foolish in the face of such monstrous cruelty. When you see a life extinguished in the very act of resistance, it is natural for our spirits to feel a profound weariness. It is natural to feel powerless against such terrifying forces of dehumanization. It is natural to feel like that butterfly in the Amazon didn't just stir the wind, but got caught up in a high-powered ceiling fan. But resistance is a practice. It's not a one-time surge of adrenaline. It's a spiritual muscle. And like any muscle, it gets tired, it cramps, it demands rest. But also, like any muscle, it grows stronger when it's used in community. Resistance is not a solo sport. And if you try to carry the weight of the world on your own shoulders, you will break. But if we build a bridge together, the weight is distributed until the burden becomes light. We are heartened and reminded of this very embodiment of our values by the national movement of clergy and faith leaders literally showing up in Minneapolis to meet this moment. Think about that. 1 week to plan, dozens of faith traditions, a daunting winter setting that would make even the most hardy Illinoisan think twice. And hundreds showed up anyway. They didn't show up because they had the same theology. They showed up because they had the same conscience. The individual differences, the geographic lines, the colors of the flags, the wordsmithing details of their respective creeds fell away in favor of standing together for the greater good. Many voices amplified by singing together. That is the power of a network. When the world tries to drown us out with the noise of hate, we don't just shout louder, we sing in harmony. This is where the Unitarian Universalist Advocacy Network of Illinois comes in. For many of us, social justice means the incredible work you do right here in Peoria. The food drive, the local vigil, the community partnership that keeps a family in their home. That local energy is the engine of our faith. It is the V8 of our Unitarian Universalist identity. But if your local work is the engine, UUNI is the transmission. Now, I'm not a mechanic, but I've spent enough time in corporate boardrooms to know when someone's trying to sell me a lemon. As anyone who's ever owned a high mileage car knows, you can have a powerful engine, a shiny coat of paint, and a coexist bumper sticker, but if the transmission is slipping, you aren't going anywhere. What exactly does UUNI do? We function as your voice and your organizing arm at the state level. We are the mechanism that takes the raw power generated in Peoria, in Rockford, in Carbondale, and in Chicago, and shifts it into the right gear to move the heavy machinery of state government. We connect our 34 Illinois congregations so that when a bill on reproductive rights, climate change, or housing policy comes up, we speak with a coordinated, powerful, and Unitarian Universalist moral authority. We make sure the butterfly wings of Peoria are beating in sync with the wings in Urbana. We translate our principles into policy. UUNI monitors legislation so you don't have to read 400-page bills at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. We organize rallies, we lobby lawmakers, and we ensure that our commitment to justice extends beyond these beautiful sanctuary walls and into the halls of government where life and death decisions are made every single day. We are your commitment to scale. We transform a single voice into a spiritual chorus that politicians cannot ignore. We make sure that when you say justice, the folks in Springfield hear accountability. And we want to improve. We want to hear what you are passionate about, what needs we are serving, and just as importantly, which ones we are not. We strive to be good partners to educate, inform, and motivate Illinois UUs to act in alignment with our values as an expression of faith. Because faith without works is just a very nice Sunday morning hobby. My role is to bring the mind to match our collective hearts and our helping hands. To lead this vital work, I come with both a deep spiritual grounding and a technical discipline. I spent 2 decades at global organizations like Google and the Walt Disney Company. And yes, I've gone from the happiest place on earth to the Illinois State House. Some might say that's a lateral move in terms of costuming and performance, but the stakes are a bit higher. I spent years in boardrooms mastering strategy, operations, and efficiency. I know how to take complex, messy, unsolvable problems and design elegant, sustainable solutions. I'm here to make sure that every ounce of your passion, every minute of your time, and every dollar you donate can have maximum impact. I've seen what makes work effective, and I've seen what makes it heart work. But I also come to this role as a Black woman, an 80s latchkey kid, and a single mother. I was raised on the Navajo reservation, where poverty was not a concept, but a neighbor, and where the capacity to dream was often a luxury people couldn't afford. I understood early that seeing yourself and your circumstances improving is a key component of seeing possibility in the world. If you can't see a path out, you stop walking. UUNI's job is to build that path. A theme of my life has been the persistence of imagination. I don't often have the cushion of support in messaging and representation. I have been called over and over to step into spaces that don't have my perspective or my life experience or my year-round golden tan. Envisioning this world as it could be is what so many of us have learned to do because the alternative, the world as it is just too overwhelming to face without a vision. I've navigated so many assumptions about my ability, my intelligence, and even my vocabulary. I've truly been flattered by some of the erroneous presumptions of my brilliant strategy to take down systems from the inside. People think I'm playing 4D chess when I'm really just trying to remember where I parked my car. But amidst the storm, as Maya Angelou said, God gave us rainbows. That resilience is the spiritual strength I bring to our collective work. I am here to ensure that our intense moral passion is matched by fierce strategic competence. Because in Peoria and in Chicago and in Minneapolis, we don't just need to resist, we need to win. We need to win for the kid in the bunny hat. We need to win for the planet. We need to win for our own liberation. Friends, as I step into this role, let us remember why we are called to this work. Our commitment to social justice is not a political hobby. It's not something to do because we're tired of Netflix and want to feel edgy. It is a spiritual discipline. It is as much part of our faith as prayer, as meditation, and as lighting the chalice. The great human rights movements of history were not born only from good policy or clever white papers. They were born from the aching conscience of individuals who could no longer stand silent. They were born from people who realized that their silence was a form of complicity. As Unitarian Universalists, we are not called to be comfortable. Believe me, if we were, coffee would be better, our pews would be cushioned with memory foam, and our committee meetings would be a lot shorter. We are called to be covenanted, bound together by a promise to affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person and to build a better world. It means that when you hurt, I feel it. It means that when a family in Peoria is evicted, it is an affront to my faith in Chicago. It means that we cannot afford the privilege of delay. We cannot afford the maybe later. We cannot afford the let's form a task force to study the possibility of thinking about acting. The forces of dehumanization are not forming task forces. They are moving quickly. The climate is not waiting for our perfectly worded resolution. It is changing. We must be as organized as the forces we oppose. The elders say that we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, but that we borrow it from our children. This means our justice work is an act of spiritual stewardship. It is a debt we owe to the future. It is the easy option to look around and despair. And I'm right there with you. To list off the many wrongs, the systemic racism, the climate crisis, the erosion of basic human rights, and then retreat into ourselves, into our private lives, rather than step into the messy, uncomfortable, imperfect action that we know is needed. But despair is a luxury, and action is a necessity. Not knowing what to do is not a reason to do nothing. If you don't know what to do, join someone who does. If you don't know where to start with the person next to you. You and I is here to give you the what and the how so that your why has a place to land. My promise to you is to bring my whole self, my strategy, my empathy, my resilience, and my occasionally questionable sense of humor to this mission. I promise to be the transmission that doesn't slip, even when the road gets steep. And my call to you is to bring your whole self too. Bring your anger at the news. Don't suppress it. Use it as fuel. Bring your hope for the future. Don't hide it. Use it as a compass. Bring your willingness to beat your wings in unison with 33 other congregations. We are building what Dr. King called the beloved community. It is not a utopia where everyone agrees. It is a community where everyone belongs. It is a place where we have moved from the fragility of the individual to the resilience of the collective. Together, we are not merely fighting against injustice. We are actively and deliberately building something for our neighbors. We are weaving care across the state of Illinois. We are building a place where love wins, where equity is the baseline, and where justice rolls down like water. May it be so. May we make it so. And may we have a little bit of fun while we're at it. Because if we aren't laughing occasionally, the other side has already won. Amen.